Well, Nick, happy Independence Day.
Well, thank you very much. Same to you.
Yeah. We've been celebrating Independence Day since 1996 at the National Foundation of Patriotism. You started this organization all those years ago, and you have gone strong. We've celebrated different each year. And certainly this year with COVID, it's going to obviously be a whole lot different. But we never not do it. And
No.
You have never, ever dropped a drop of enthusiasm over Independence Day. So let's talk to people who love America. We know the majority of our 300,000 strong audience pretty much loves America, loves our flag, and loves our history, but are quite concerned about what we're seeing going on today. How do we celebrate Independence Day today?
Well, first of all, Pat, thank you for reflecting on the origin of the National Foundation of Patriotism. Celebrating the 4th of July is one of the most significant days we can talk about what makes America great.
Yeah.
And it isn't the 4th of July that makes America great. It's all that's taken place in representation that the 4th of July addresses itself to. Mm-hmm. And the single most significant, independence. We're a free country. What are the other things that make up the 4th of July? Well, celebrations, traditionally, we've had celebrations where people have picnics or events or parades or events where people attend and there are guest speakers. And we have been part of all of those kind of opportunities on the 4th of July. As far as what the day itself means, I use the term celebration of independence. I reflect on a number of things when I think about the American flag, because that symbol is the symbol of the 4th of July. It's not the 4 and the July, it's the flag, okay? And that flag has 50 independent stars on it that represent 50 individual states that have made a point of cohesively coming together to create the greatest country in the world, the United States of America. And we are a country that is known for its freedom. And we see every day hundreds, thousands of people trying to become citizens of this great country. In fact, the question is often asked, what other country has the level of people who want to come into it? I can't give you one. I don't think anybody can. And regardless of whether you're talking about the immigrants coming in through our southern borders, or whatever means or methods people try to get, people want to be in America. Mm-hmm. And the reason they want to be here is we offer freedom, yep, opportunity, family advancement, your family growth, safety, security, employment. I mean, you start thinking of all those benefits, I get goosebumps telling you that's what it represents. That's why the 4th of July is so important. And this year, boy, we're coming off of a rash of incredible days that people say that's not representative of America. And you're right. It's not representative of America. We are not a destructive nation. We have been in nation building ever since the day we created this great country.
So the flag represents freedom to Americans, but also to people throughout the world.
Yes.
One of the things that's always intrigued me working beside you for all these years, and we hear from just about everybody that attends any of our events, how in the face of what we're seeing today, does Nick Snyder keep his enthusiasm so high and his faith and trust in the American dream and the American way so strong? How do you do it?
Well, you have to remind yourself every day of the blessings. And you can start off any way you want. Get up and say your morning prayers and thank God for what we have. Look around at your own possessions. Look at the possessions of your family. Look at your family. Be thankful and grateful at what we have. There are prayer chains going on all over America. Mm-hmm. There are people who are individually praying for the welfare of our country and the welfare of these people to find their way to what the real essence of America is.
Let's talk a little bit about what would Nick Snyder say to the people in America who love the country, respect the Constitution, honor our flag, know when to stand, know when to kneel. what do you say to them about the fear that they're feeling over what they're seeing? How do you encourage them to come up higher?
Well, first of all, deal in a reality. Deal with reality. Deal with the fact that America as a country is far stronger every day this occurs. And the reason it is stronger is people's resolve to defend what America is about gets greater. It doesn't get less.
True.
And when I say that, what I'm saying is those 1,000,000 to 1 out there, those people are getting stronger in their belief because they know that what they're hearing, for the most part, is not representative of what America is about. When I use the term the American flag, I speak about when we talk about wars that America has gone into, and you go into prisoner of war camps or the Dachau's or the Auschwitzes of this world, and the people see the American flag on a soldier's armband or on a tank coming in. How do you think they felt? They saw the freedoms. And what have we done over the years? We've been a country that frees people. When we saw slavery didn't work, what did we do?
Yeah.
We were doggone
Free the
right. We
slave.
changed it.
Yeah. So the first step in trying to quell the fear is to inspire people to go back and remember. Remember what our core values are. Remember what America is truly about, and remember. So
Yes, and remember, you have an election coming up.
Right.
Much of this activity has been centered and actively
Yes.
focusing on an election coming up. And we have to remind ourselves, look, it's okay to have disagreement, but when disagreement turns to violence, that's no longer a discussion. That's a combative situation.
One of the things that has thrilled me more than anything, when I first started working for this organization, we had a museum.
Yes.
Every once in a while, an anarchist would come and visit the National Museum of Patriotism in Atlanta, Georgia. And they would come in angry, and they would come in with a whole list of grievances. And then they would get the Nick Snyder tour of America through that museum, through the lens of hope, peace, calm, kindness, and happiness. And we watched their entire demeanor change, and without fail, there was never one, in the time I've been with this organization, there was never a time that one of them came through the door that left with the same attitude. It was absolutely unbelievable. And I wish back then we had cell phones with cameras, because it's almost impossible to describe how a person could come in very angry and very in our face and wanting to really put it to us, and then walk out not only hugging Nick Snyder and thanking him for what he's done. We never charged an entrance fee for angry people. We would just take them through and let them experience patriotism, the patriotism that you always said they brought in with them, because you always trained us that everybody has a sense of patriotism within them, and they bring it to us.
Yes.
All our job is to do is not to make patriots out of everyone. Our job was always to inspire patriotism, to recharge their patriotic batteries from the history that they brought in with them. It was absolutely amazing to watch people completely change and leave actually donating money that we never even asked for, and truly appreciating what we did. It was absolutely crazy. We never had one person not leave like that.
Well, Pat, you remember my motto. It was always, call me.
Yeah, yes.
Call me if you got somebody that doesn't believe.
Yes.
Call me, and no matter where I'm at, I'm going to try to get there.
So
okay?
what everybody needs to know, because I know even at the time I was at the edge of my seat wondering, what the heck did he say to these people to get them to calm down and find the good in themselves? Because that's what we saw on the other side. We saw angry people come out kind, generous, and loving people. What did you do, Nick? What did you say to them? And what do you say to people today?
Well, obviously, there's a whole lot of smart aleck answers I could throw at you, but
Yes.
but that's a very serious question. And I continually remind myself the reason I developed and created this National Foundation of Patriotism and my Museum of Patriotism was that I felt we were slipping in the love of country. And that was validated by a number of polls that have been taking place, and even more recently that had been slipping. And I always welcomed that person that had that, for lack of a better term, a burning inside of them of anger, and it was anger.
It was anger.
And you had to find out what is it that set them off, and that's what I would reach for. I would always try to find out what has got Mr. Bill all upset. What is it? And I would focus on concentrating. Bill, you have to have a reason for your anger.
You know, Nick, you always said to us that if you sit long enough with your anger, you'll find out that it's really pain.
Well, that's what you're reaching for. What has got it? What happened? And you know, I can say this to you. I only had one example of where an individual's son had died in the defense of freedom. That this man was angry. Okay, and he was angry because his country sent him there.
Right.
And of course, I also would at that time we're speaking of, we haven't had a draft in the United States military for over 40 years.
Nope.
The draft was stopped immediately after the Vietnam War. And so every young man or young woman or elderly folks that entered the foundation, the museum, came in a country that was defended by volunteers.
Yes.
So when
100%.
someone would come in to me and be angry because their son died for America, but they weren't recognized in the former fashion, or the very fact that they died angered these people. Now, that's an issue, quite frankly, between that individual and God, okay?
That's a tough one.
I could not resolve that.
You know, Nick, as a military mother, and I had a son in the war while we had the museum open.
I remember
in
very
Atlanta.
clearly.
And so I came to work every day defending freedom, defending patriotism, because he was over there trying to defend freedom for people who couldn't free themselves. And one of the most amazing things that I witnessed was your compassion for those parents who just couldn't get their head around how they could go from celebrating and being so proud of their sons and daughters for being, entering the service. And of course, sadly, too many of them lost their lives in that service. It's very hard for parents to ever get their heads around those things. But Nick, you had a way with people that you gave them back the pride that they'd lost in the grief. This nation today, I believe, to a large degree, we see playing out on the news almost every night, grief. Speak to the Americans who are grieving today over the loss of what they may feel is America as we knew it. One of the phrases you hate and you banned from our vocabulary here at the National Foundation of Patriotism is new normal. You refuse to allow us to discuss any kind of new normal because it, as you told us, it defines what we know and we have and we embrace as gone, and it's not gone. So speak to the grieving people that feel as though they've lost the America that they knew and why they should know that they haven't.
Well, first of all, the American spirit that you're referring to is one of those issues that those of us who personally believe we possess that, and I watched you demonstrate it with your own son and the period of time he was in combat. For all that time that he was, you were serving here as executive director. And yes, I saw many days that you had tears in your eyes. And we talked about prayer is your answer. We could not change what the outcome would be because we did not know what the outcome would be. Yeah. But for those parents who've lost lives, we had a particular exhibit, you may recall, Pat, Art from the Heart. Yeah. And it was where a gathering of artists here in the state of Georgia had individually painted portraits of fallen young men and young women.
From Georgia.
And they chose to do them in a multitude of different. One was actually done as a cheerleader, and one was done as a football player.
Right.
And because what the artist had done had gone to the families and asked, how could I do a picture that would be justice to you of a memory of your son or your daughter?
Right.
Well, that particular exhibit was at our museum, and we literally held days where we had to put people in line outside to wait.
It was a very popular one.
Very, very moving, because private citizens, this artist colony here in Atlanta, the Atlanta Artist Colony Group, had assembled those, and we had that display, and I believe at one time we had, I think it was 44 of them, and it was interesting because
images,
Senator Johnny Isaacson actually bought one of those paintings.
Yes, he did.
And up until recently, when he retired, that was hanging in his office, and that was 15 years ago. And but the idea of people remembering a son or a daughter, we never want to forget them.
No.
We never want to forget them. We want to immortalize them in our minds because they are our family.
That's exactly.
You know, it's like people are proud to say, my great-great-great-grandfather fought in the Civil War or World War I or World War II.
Yeah.
Those are issues you can be proud of because people were fighting for freedom, if not for America. For who? I think General Raymond G. Davis, who served on my board for 11 years, General Davis was one of the finest American heroes I've ever met in my life. He stood 5'3", and he weighed 119 pounds when he joined the Marine Corps. That gentleman went on to earn the Navy Cross and the Medal of Honor. And when I spoke to him about freedom, and he would respond to you with freedom is a responsibility for every American.
For every one of us.
Every one of us. It was a responsibility.
Yeah.
Freedom isn't free. Some pay that cost. And the old saying that some gave all and all gave some. Well, hopefully all of us in America are those who gave some in the form of supporting our military and defense of our country or whatever our call to duty was. But when we look at these men and women that were depicted in these pictures and at their best, they were at their best.
Yeah.
And certainly it was incredibly emotional. But when I met most of the parents, they were so moved by their son or their daughter being recognized. And I think that's what we're talking about. Recognize it. Don't hide it. Be proud of it. If you don't have a display of some sort with a picture and the awards and the unit he served in or she served in your home, you should have. We don't want to hide from this. God gave us the gift of having that child, and God had chosen at the time and place to take that child, okay? But that child made a decision.
Right.
They wanted to serve their country.
Yes. And you were very instrumental in comforting many, many parents and getting their refocusing their attention on things that they could do, things that would be good in honoring the memory of their children, and also joining us so that they can further the cause of patriotism in America, keeping patriotism strong so that our soldiers, as I often said, came back to a more patriotic America than, say, my brother did from the Vietnam War.
Yes.
When he came back from that war, it was a whole different story. Not very different from what we're seeing today. So if you're going to be able to move forward after this temporary, crazy season that we're in right now, what would you encourage people to, as you said to the parents, hold on to, look back to, and also look forward to?
Well, you're going to start with your own family values, okay? And I think each and every family in America has their family history, their family values, wherever they've come from. It doesn't make any difference where your heritage is. That's not what's important. It's where you are now.
Yes.
You have chosen to be an American citizen, and you have responsibilities to America. And among those, and I stress this every year because there's some form of an election every year,
Yes.
okay, that we need to get to know who are we voting for and what do they represent, and we need to be part of that. I find one of the most discouraging figures I ever found out in my life was to find out how few people actually vote. And the most recent polls indicated just a little bit more than 50% of qualified voters in America vote. And that's just unacceptable. When I said deal with your duties and responsibilities, one of those major responsibilities is voting, whether it's a local election for the county dog catcher or it's the President of the United States. You absolutely have to be a person who participates.
True.
Otherwise, you just have released your first responsibility to America to keep it strong. What keeps us strong? Qualified people, committed people, dedicated people, and people who do the job and follow through with what they say they're going to do. So first, find out what the job is, find out who they are, what are their credentials, to be sure that you know who you're voting for. You don't vote because the guy's got a nice Irish-sounding name. That is not a qualification. Okay, folks? That's not a qualification.
Okay.
You find out what the individual has done.
Yes.
What's gotten them to that point. But it is probably the single most important thing that we do. And obviously, I can get into obeying the laws and paying your taxes and all that. But the single most important thing is keeping the country strong. It's only strong because it has strong leaders. And that's what makes America great. And we have survived one turmoil after another.
Yes.
And I've watched it for the 78 years I've been around. I've seen a lot of turmoil. But I've always watched the right side of America surface.
Yes.
Because in the end, the heart and soul of this country is what makes this country great. And we still are the number one country of choice for people to come to.
All right, Nick. So in closing, let's hear your grand finale, the Nick Snyder rally finale. How do we all stay unified in a divided America?
Well, we're back to a thing called decision making. Okay? Yeah. You have to decide, do you want to be involved or you don't want to be involved? It's the first decision you have to make. And you've got to ask yourself, where am I at in this action scene? Do I want to be a player? So that's the very first thing you face.
Right.
And you have to decide that. I've made that decision. I'm going to become more actively involved than I am. And I try to stay actively involved. But I'm going to become more involved. Yep. And that more involved is going to be focusing on people getting out to vote.
Yep.
Okay? The issues associated with that, how do we fix government, is by putting the right people in the right positions. So if you haven't made the decision to be involved, which says find out who the people are that are going to be up for election, study them carefully, learn about what they are good or bad about, talk to your neighbors about them, talk to other people about them. If they have a rally, go to it. Attend that rally. Find out what they're talking about. And go prepared. Do not be afraid to ask the question, how do you feel about this type of treatment, this law? How do you feel about it? And be involved. Sitting on the sidelines doesn't make you a player in the game.
True.
You got to get down on the field. And on the field is in front of that particular individual running for an office. And you need to be the one challenging that person. And I have become more aggressive at that to realize I'm not doing as much as I need to, and I will improve that immediately. That is the message I want you as a viewer to take from me. Get involved. We can't sit back and watch this happen and wonder what happened.
Is America gone as we know it, Nick?
No, not even close. Not even close.
So Saturday is 4th of July in America.
I bet it is. Another great, great day to be an American.
And we want to inspire people, we want to encourage people, and we want to empower people. We want to encourage everyone to remember that this country is still the greatest country on the planet. We want to remind everybody that we are founded on our Judeo-Christian values, which we hold incredibly dear. And we want to remind everybody that unity is the answer and the way forward. So staying unified, embracing your families and friends, and just letting the anarchists be dealt with where they are. But we need to stay together. We need to celebrate this great nation. We need to celebrate the independence and the freedom that we have so that we know we'll never lose it.
Well, Pat, that closing is as good as it's going to get for us, because when you use the term in a single word, unity,
Yes.
one of the greatest things we have is unity as a country, and people have seen that. I'll repeat, there's no other country in the world that so many people want to be part of.
No.
And let us never forget that. So we have to keep it that great country, and it's going to continue to be that great country, because those of you who are listening to this are going to go out and do more than you've been doing.
It's
Am I right, folks?
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
You've inspired us.